I'm not very good at remembering anything. Unfortunately the printer broke today, so I'm going to have to read from my laptop, so please bear with me. Just to give you a bit of background that's kind of non-existent, this is actually my first poetry gig. I hope you like it. I've been writing for a while but never actually performed any of it, so fingers crossed. What I'm first going to do for you is a kind of set of poems that fit together. They're from a collection that I call Beautiful Thieves, which I say is around the primeval origins of the modern superstar. So they're kind of around the idea about people who gain fame. It starts out as a desire to kind of fulfill a dream and then turns into something monstrous. So this first one is called The Price of Fame, and it goes something like this. His mother had always told him he had bedroom eyes, and when he walked in with his piercing gaze and feathery locks, Leda could see what she had meant. I'll make you a star, not stationary, but shooting. I'll make your limbs sparkle through the sky, but first let me sculpt my scene around you. She didn't know what he meant, but she let him move closer, longing for the devotion he had promised. And when the pain kicked in, and her eyes flushed with tears, she persevered. That's that one. Thank you. Next up, you're probably going to kind of see a bit of a pattern forming with these titles, but this one's called Hollywood Boulevard. He walked in, did great Polycrates, a bouffant heap of raven locks, his lips and ears laced with silver. The painted man, sketched, photographed and inked every way and sideways, with strings at his fingertips and plectrums in his eyes. Him and his beautiful thieves, stealing hearts they never meant to take. She was there, as he wandered lonely through the crowd. He caught her eye, caged as an animal, and her bodyguard, Jaijis, watching her as if in a zoo. She was revealed to the world by a man who has no idea what was written on the inside. But that man's accomplice ruined that flawless script before it was due for release, and the only way to save her was to win the only heart Polycrates was destined to steal. Taking her from one iron cage to trap them both in his own sequin bubble, Polycrates set free the evil angel and the unwilling prostitute. Okay, thank you. This is a favourite of mine, this one. It was written quite a long time ago, but it's called The Nightingale. The voice of an angel, the sweet nightingale, once a supernova, now a fallen star. This beauty worked the modestly sized clubs in her modest brown dress, singing songs of hard work and success. The night he came to see her, she remembered it so well. He, amazed by her delivery, took her into the cold outside and lit them both a cigarette. He told her that her dream was not insane, and then flattered her reflections and finished protesting, "But darling, you look so plain." As partners, he would organise the meet and greets, while she secured her next guest spot. But as lovers, she would write songs he would hear but not heed, he adorning her with trinkets she would never wear. Then she came along, Miss Pink and fluffy and all over sparkling. At first they were friends, the Nightingale and she, but Pinky always seemed to be so much more free, plastering on layers of makeup with a vigour she could not sustain. And Nightingale rang aloud in the most beautiful voice, "But darling, you look so vain." He stood behind her, about the dressing room door. He heard her say those flippant words, took a deep breath, and silently moved away. That night he left, with sparkles about his waist. She shone for a short time, her radiance blinding Nightingale's light. But when the pink was no longer so bright, and her sharp sparkles shone no more, he cried for authenticity. And with that, the Nightingale and her song returned. Soothing his over-attended soul, she sang her last song, but the first time she can recall, there was something solemn playing about her lips. She stood behind him, about the dressing room door. She heard each cry and every sob, took a deep breath, then silently moved away. Thank you. What you might be realising that some of these are kind of, they're based on other stories, be them old or not. You might recognise the next one. I think everybody in the room will. It's called Beauty and the Beast. Stunning. No other words could describe this beauty. Not blonde and no blue eyes. Alternative, they said. She danced and directed, painted pictures and making earrings on the side. Her ambition shone for all to see, like a notorious flag on a mast swaying in the breeze. She worked and worked harder, modelling and appearing in commercials to get by. Stunning. No other words could describe this beast. Not brunette and no brown eyes. My lover, she said. He watched and took notice, waiting by the stage doors to walk home by her side. With makeup cracked, he would approach her by night, devour and engulf her, and taste her flesh to steal her shine. He tried and tried harder, but nothing could steal the stars from her eyes. Okay, so that's that kind of section of those collection of poems. The next one is untitled, so any suggestions, send them on a postcard. This poem was actually originally omitted from the collection that I just did, and I'm not really sure why. If I'm honest, I can't really remember where the idea came from. I know it's loosely based on some sort of fairy folklore, but I don't know what. So if anyone can enlighten me, please let me know after the show. Okay. Once upon a time, a little fairy danced for her father, her eyes adorned with sparkles on the rug that was her stage. Carefree, she sang for any who would listen, and Daddy, so proud, gave her a higher stage to perform on, much harder if she fell, and slippery as well. She grew older and wiser, or so she thought. Creeping around others' backstage rooms made her feel so high. Must have been something in the air. Soon she sung for Daddy no longer, and only for an audience. Her appearance as some sort of fairy queen propelled her into some sort of mainstream, landing her in all sorts of kerfuffle. But when she laid down her head, someone else was in there instead. Now this witch lies with Satan and the Prince of Darkness too, to keep her flame, or was it fame, looking true? Okay, I've got some more miscellaneous poems for you next. This next one I wrote when I was a teenager, and I know some of you are probably thinking, surely she's still a teenager. I'm not, I'm actually 22. So this one was written when I was about 14 or 15. And from the subject matter, I think my age at the time of writing is pretty obvious, but it's one which I still hold quite dear. It's called Every Contradiction. Cut me deep until I feel something, but provide me with the medication to stop the pain. Perform the drama that I asked for, but cover me with sweet sensation. Something doesn't belong here. I'll ask you to step aside and watch the monster tear away the layers. Half is black and half is white, the sun steals away my colours. I need this, but do I want this? Let tragedy strike and tear my life apart. I'll watch as the scene is painted. Give me my life back and I won't let it go. I don't remember asking you to take it. At least that's what I'll say. I want you to love me, but I want you to hate me. Watch me as I shine, then tumble and fall, as the most vibrant star and the darkest wall. Never let anyone tell you I was anything more or less. Come to my castle, let me seduce you in, love you and hug you, and then spit you out again. This next one is a real favourite of mine that I wrote when I was about 17, and it's about a very significant time of change in my life and actually influenced some of the many tattoos I now have, so it's very close to my heart. This is called The Tape Still Rolling. You clung to me as the long day turned into night, escaping from the burrow that had been made for me, into the darkness that I called home. Almost there. We looked at the ornaments shattered on the ground. They were only for show, nothing more than something pretty to look at, but on close viewing we always knew they weren't that beautiful. I picked up the pieces and tried to put them back together again, but the pieces didn't fit into our jigsaw anymore. We walked on. You told me you'd forgotten about them, whilst you watched their spirits float hauntingly across my eyes. They'd created a cheap copy of the sparkle that once fired my vision. We tread through the dusty tunnel, coughing and spluttering with hundreds of allergies as we reach the light on the other side. I'd never seen anything so bright, an all-encompassing nirvana, or so it seemed. You said it was dull, dim, it could never be appealing. I shrank back at your words, but took your hand again and brought you with me. You seemed to like it for a while. We weren't supposed to make it together. We came to a crossroads, 1,000 different directions we must choose. I wanted to take them all except the one you felt drawn to. I entered the maelstrom. Reluctantly, you followed as I headed towards the summit. Chaos ensued, euphoric and neglected. Victories and failures, hope and joy. And now we both can't wait until the end appears. I wait for the light. Help me. It was beautiful for a while, not unlike a crystal wine glass shining in the moonlight, sparkling through the night. But then it all falls apart, crashing to the floor, as the broken shards of glass cut like razors into my flesh, into yours. Haunted. I'm so terrified. I don't know how I felt. I don't know if it was true. I just knew that I didn't want to lose you, because losing you meant losing a part of me, and part that was strong and meant to be. A warrior, a fighter. Help me. I can't have you. I'm not supposed to. This is a journey for the lonely, those who will find salvation in the discoveries they make and the people they meet. This is for those who don't know what to look for those who don't know what it means to look in the mirror and truly understand what is staring back at them. Keep me here. I'll stay forever. Get me out of here. I need to leave now. I feel like I need you with me, but I feel like I need you far away from me. My safety jacket. My safety net. My straitjacket. This is a journey for the lonely. Slowly losing the feeling in my fingers. I really love the feeling of finding a poem that you don't remember writing. Whilst I was working on the set for this show, I found this next poem on my computer. I actually stared at it for a very, very long time because I cannot recall writing it ever. But having said that, I'm rather proud of it. This is called Lamplight. I can hear the whispers from the empty pavement, trying to taunt me and seduce me into whatever it is I need least. Their secrets reveal, the fairy lights swaying in a hurricane, as the dragon wings sprout from my arm with the schizophrenic at my wrist. And upon staring into the eyes of the goblins that line my street, these situations arise where the shadows in the lamplight are darker than those behind. This next poem began as a bit of an autobiographical anecdote that kind of turned into some sort of warped fantasy that kind of ran away with itself, as everybody's head can kindly do at one time or other. It's aptly named Deal With It by Dreaming. Although I push the call button with such forceful purpose, my mind falters as the phone rings. Up and down. That's the way it will always be. I still hold with me that wow for 5 minutes, that opportunity whose body I felt, whose intentions were travelling fast, the wrong way down that dual carriageway in the rain. The replacement that got away, flashing up every sign except the green light. As I stormed out of the way, taking the candy that was on display instead of searching for cake in the back room. Giggle, argue, master and servant. Pain and tears as you entered, me taking it for a reason I can't recall. Too busy wondering what I'm doing with the robot lying beside me. So mechanical, I came to expect it. I never knew I'd have the opportunity to best it. Each night he would come inside, moist skin up against the walls behind me would falter as I fell. Hands reaching further down to feel those depths, how I felt his depths beneath the sheets. Pin me down and teach me right, with his girlish looks and blokey arms surround me, and with my chipped nails I paint my screams with inky needles across his wings. Noting it all down and fleshing it out later, when I've convinced myself I'll be thinking straight. Is something going to force up this well of tears every time the words dry up? One's telling me he's just realised I'm the best he's ever seen. The other's telling me he's changed. And the one left over is saying that if I'd waited 5 minutes longer, I'd have been his forever. Just loving sitting there screaming, reaching with my fingers towards my cheeks and tearing out with nails the flesh contaminated, searing the hot streams they meet and the dry lips they grace from lack of contact. just loving lying there screaming, reaching his fingers towards my cheeks, and drawing with painted nails on the skin, breathing, rushing through the veins they touch and the wet lips they grace from lack of abandonment. Never completely innocent, although I'd like to pretend I'll still retain my halo, whilst your wings bleed with the screams I etched across your back. The womanizer, the alcoholic, and you. I'd point at each one in turn. I'd take you without a doubt, if you weren't but a shadow of one of my daydreams. And at the end of it all, there's someone with a handwritten letter waiting for me. He's here to see her, but he gives me a simple recipe, and I feel a shivering in my hair roots. Quite a weird one, I'll give you that. This next one, this is my final poem for the evening. It's kind of still under construction. I actually wrote it specifically for this night. And as strange as it may sound when you actually hear the poem, it's actually based on a bit of an odd true story that happened not so long ago, last month in fact. So see if you can figure out what it is. It's very, very strange. This is called The Edge. A shout, a scream. One begging to stop, another begging for more. The movie that had been tipped as the main event merely retreated into the background. A synonymous backdrop to the conversation ensued. A shout, a scream. One put forward a theory, another disagreed. No dancing but choreography of a working wardrobe and others' pyjamas as the celebrations went on into the night. But after much giggles and nibbles, the party subsided, some retreating to their rooms and others staying behind. She stumbled down the concrete steps, her grazed knees not a result of too much white or too much red. But as she sat up trying to figure out how many glasses she'd had, her skull took a separate tumble and bounced itself off the terrified floor. Her sister, almost, despite her training, screamed a ghostly scream that left those upstairs wondering who or what was occurring, and had something enter the building. Through a wall, a window, or even possibly the floor, they convinced themselves something was coming through the door to get them. And technology let them keep one another updated on levels of fright, all three expecting to see quite a sight. If they'd only gone downstairs and seen as she'd fallen, the comedy over and a panic friend calling. And the bottle she'd held onto so tightly rolled down the steps, its tiny thuds lightly echoed as her eyes rolled back in her mind. A shout, a scream, but this time with a flash. First she's a schoolgirl in uniform grey, then she's herself. Back and forth the switch rent, and those around her never noticed, but those up above, without eyes to see down below, could feel how this separate girl's presence did grow inside her. Even so, get her into that hospital and await the results, as both bottle and nerves teetered on the edge of that staircase. And that's all from me for the minute. Thank you very much.